wonderful introduction, and from you as well, Omar. And I just have to say, in return to Nelly, that I've learned so much from Nelly over the years, and we've had such a great relationship. And it's a pleasure to be doing this event with you, and it's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you at High Tech, which is something I've wanted to do for a while, as Nelly said. I'm going to take you on a little tour of what's happening with technology from my perspective. And there's two things that I'd ask you to think about, that I'm going to talk about as I go through. One is one message I'm going to talk about is that we're living in an exceptional time from a technology perspective. This isn't a type of era that happens routinely. We're living in a time that's going to dramatically shape and reshape the human experience and the future that we have. And that's why it's so important to understand the future. This isn't an abstract thing that impacts others. It's an exceptional time, and I'll explain why. And it's something we all need to understand, which is my second message, is that this is personal, and it's something we all need to understand better, because the decisions we make and the way we shape the future has dramatic implications on what that future looks like. And I'll explain why that's important as I go through. Now, I'll be talking about Technology Vision 2021. As Nelly said, it's something we do every year. I've been doing this for about 10 years. Accenture's been doing it for actually 21 years. It's our 21st anniversary of doing the vision, and it's been a remarkably accurate forecast of the future of what's happening. And we try to tell the story a little bit differently. This isn't just a list of technologies. In fact, you might hear less about specific technologies than you think. What I'm going to talk about is why the technology matters and how you need to think about it from a business perspective. And one thing that's always important, as to me, as I stand back and think about what's happening in the future, is you have to understand the context of what's happening in the world around us, because the context really matters about what's happening with technology. And if you think about the last year roughly that we've been through, man, that's a lot of context. And you see some of the images showing on the slide that's being displayed now. In the top left, we thought it was a big deal. We thought Brexit was a big deal to start with, going back to roughly January of 2020. A lot of concern and global concern around Brexit and what was happening there. And there was geopolitical concerns. If you go back, about a year, 15 months ago, a lot of geopolitical concerns with respect to China, North Korea at the time, US, et cetera. And in particular, a lot of technology related, geopolitical, concerns about what was happening. There were, unprecedented political chasms and tensions, certainly in the US that we all experienced, but around the world in many countries as well. There was also, a lot of focus on systemic social injustice and racism. We just recently passed the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's death as an example. And on top of that, you had things like, massive, concerns and risks in the world. I showed, in the bottom left, you'll see SolarWinds, which was a massive security incident just before the holiday season this past year, or more recently, the Colonial Pipeline phishing attack and ransomware attack that happened. So you look at all this, and it's a very volatile world we're operating in, and that really matters when we think about the technology and what's happening. And you really need a new mindset to navigate through this world. So if you go to the next slide, if I step back and look at what's happened in the past year, the one thing I didn't mention yet is COVID. COVID was the event that obviously reshaped a lot of the world in what's happened, over the past year to 15 months, and in my view, COVID hit a giant fast forward button. It fast forwarded us into the future, fast forwarded 10 years of change into 1 or 2 years that we're living through right now, which is why this is such an exceptional time. The future is here. We just all haven't caught up to the future yet. We're living in a different reality. We just haven't caught up to it yet. And that's something that I'll talk about as we go through, and why this is such an important time for us to understand. But if you go to the next slide, it's also been a painful time for many companies. Before COVID, we did some research that we released in Davos in 2020. So this is, again, just before COVID broke out. And we did the largest ever research study of thousands of companies globally on how they were proceeding with digital technology and the impact it was having on their business. And we found out something surprising in January 2020, which was that there was a big digital achievement gap. For all the focus on companies transforming digitally, there was a massive gap, and there was a gap of 2x. The top 10% of companies, the top 10%, were outperforming the laggards by a factor of 2x. So it was a very, very uneven, experience that companies were having with technology. The leaders were moving ahead, others were getting left behind, and then this fast forward button happened. So COVID happened, and all these other changes that I just talked about. So what happened when that fast forward button got hit? The 2x became 5x. We just redid the same research that we did before COVID, which showed a 2x outperformance by digital leaders. And post-COVID, that gap widened to 5x. So, if you think about it, that's not surprising, and I'll explain why, because of the way that technology impacted the way that companies operated during COVID. But this is a stark realization for businesses. And one way I've been expressing this to business leaders is COVID was like the test. COVID was the test you had to take that measured how good you were at digital and how capable your organization was with technology. And many organizations either failed or certainly didn't get the grade that they expected to on that test, and that's impacting their what they're doing now. And I'll come back to that. So if you go, so if you take that on and say, okay, so what, what do we do going forward? If you go to the next slide, I really think it is a moment of truth for companies. It's a moment of truth for us as individuals in terms of how we want to think about the future and where we go from here. And I'll talk quickly about 4 new realities, which to me are the lessons to be learned out of what's happened in the past year with COVID. These 4 new realities that you need to incorporate in your thinking going forward. So let me just go through them real quickly. The first new reality is around the new reality of human experience. We are different today than we were a year plus ago. We are different in ways that we don't yet understand. 8 billion people are on the planet. Billions of people instantaneously changed their behavior as a result of COVID. Couldn't travel, couldn't go to work, couldn't do the things the way they used to do it. That's never before happened in the history of human civilization. Billions of people changing instantaneously. Wars, industrial ages, things like this take years and decades to play out. Instantaneously changing the behavior, of so many people was something that's truly unprecedented. And you can see it in smaller ways. 40% of Americans had tried out online grocery shopping before COVID. Within weeks, 80% were trying or using online grocery service. 350 times increase in primary care visits, to physicians via telehealth and virtual capabilities, like you see on the screen in front of you. We're all doing things the way we are now. We're Zooming, or we're Teamsing, or we're hanging out, or WebExing, depending on what platforms you use. And it's not just in business; it's our kids learning. It's in my case, the way I'm communicating with my 85-year-old in-laws, who would have been inconceivable for them to connect in these digital ways that they're now connecting. And your understanding, your personal understanding of how the human experience is changing, and your company or organization's understanding of it is critical. And we don't yet know the full impact that this has had on how it's going to change the way our preferences, the way we want to work, the way we live, the way we shop, the way we the way we create services, et cetera. And that's really important to understand, because you have to have humility as an organization thinking about your future in terms of, and also have a sensing capability to make sure you're adapting to the changing needs of people and how they're going to want to interact. And we won't know the answer to this for many years, because we're changing continuously still as we learn how we want the future to play out. So it's a new reality of human experience, and it needs to be something you deeply think about in your organizations, and you deeply think about in the strategy and approach that you use. The second new reality that we've learned over the last year is the new reality of technology and the role of technology. What the fast forward made clear is that every business has really become a technology business. Our businesses are built on technology. As we talk about digital transformation, what's digital? Digital is a way to use technology to do your business differently. And as I said earlier, technology was the lifeline that kept things running during COVID. If COVID had happened 5 years earlier, the results, as catastrophic and devastating as COVID has been, it would have been far, far worse if we're as early as 5 years earlier, because technology gave us lifelines to connect and communicate in certainly ways that might not have been optimal, might not have been ideal, but at least kept communities and society and some of the basics of business working. That wouldn't have happened, even just several years before this. And and as I said, tech becomes a lifeline, and it's new technologies that that companies are moving to. One analogy I use, I don't know if any of you work in information technology or IT organizations. I'm sure many of you do. The role of technology is changing dramatically as we go forward, because if every business is a technology business and every business is going digital, then technology needs to take a different role going forward. I use this analogy. It's a rock. Think about a rock concert or a music concert analogy. Technology used to be the roadies, that follow the band around, that get there early, that set up the show, that make sure the equipment worked, and then that stand behind stage while business went on, or the star went on. Technology is shifting to center stage, and the organizations are realizing that, which is why CEOs, C-suites, the leaders of organizations are deeply engaging in technology and the technology strategy and technology decisions that their companies are making. Now, I'll come back to why that's important. Just one example to think about on how profound this is think about Starbucks. I drink way too much coffee, so I'm a very good Starbucks customer. But think about how Starbucks operated during the pandemic. They were one of the ones who widened that gap and did well during COVID. How did they do it? They had a very strong digital and technology foundation. They quickly updated their app. They pushed out millions of new downloads of their app. They modified that, things called APIs and the microservices, flexible technology in terms of how they had built it, so they could rapidly form business partnerships with companies like Uber Eats and create new delivery experiences for their customers. So 90% of customers were doing remote ordering for in-store pickup, and they were giving customers a new way to experience their products through home delivery. And that kind of nimbleness and adaptability and agility and innovation with technology is really what set them apart. So that's the second new reality. The third new reality is the new reality of work. And the new reality of work isn't work from home. It's a hybrid way of working. Our CEO, Julie Sweet, yesterday spoke at an event, and she described it as kind of an omni-connection approach to work, which is omni meaning we have to meet people where they are. We have to meet people where they're going to want to work. We have to meet customers where they're going to want to engage. So hybrid is kind of a simplistic and maybe static way of explaining it, but I like this kind of omni connection idea better to explain it. So work will be different. The work will be independent of location, independent of time. So asynchronous and independent of time. So we're going to design work, and this is what we're doing in Accenture. We've already done this to reshape the way we work at Accenture. Independent of location, so it can be done anywhere. Independent of time, so people can hand off if they're different time zones, different parts of the world, or work at different times of the day based on convenience. It's going to be it's going to be guided by data and metadata and heavily automated, so people can work in different ways that are better for them. And that's a very different way of thinking about work going forward, and something to think about as you think about the workplaces that you all operate in. The fourth new reality then is might be a surprising one. This is one that sometimes people don't expect, is sustainability. Why does sustainability kind of fit with these other trends, and why what have we learned about that in the past year? Well, the reality is that as companies adapt to all these changes, this is the time, and the same approach they're using to create these nimble platforms for the future is what you need to do to address the sustainability objectives you have. So now is the time, and the moment is now, as I said earlier, not just to do these other things, but to really look at the role sustainability plays, not in your strategy, in the technology, and in the approach that you use going forward. Now, I'll come back with some other examples of that. And we use a phrase, sustainability by design. How do you build sustainability by design into everything you do? So that's just incorporated into your practices. And this is talking not just about the environment, but the broader, ESGs and UN Sustainable Development Goals that that companies are focused on. Think about one example of this is that happened. I think it was about 10 months ago, where in 1 week, General Motors and Microsoft announced that Microsoft was investing $2 billion in GM's Cruise, advanced driving technology company, and then GM was aggressively moving to more cloud-based new technology platforms. The next week, GM announced that they're going to be an all-electric vehicle fleet by 2035. You could argue those two are unrelated events, but I think they're related, and they're a sign of how the two come together and how companies are thinking about the way that the future, the way they carve out the future, the way they think about things like sustainability as they think about digital technology and the platforms and how they get there. All right, so what I just talked about is not yet our vision. This is all just kind of the stage setting and context, but hopefully this helps you, or gives you a way to think about all these changes that we've experienced and how you need to adapt to these new realities going forward. And now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So maybe just pause a minute, take a breath, take in everything I just said about these new realities. Now I'm going to shift and talk about the technology vision and what you need to think about specifically in terms of where you're going with technology. Now, this is a history of our Accenture technology vision. You see a number of the themes on the slide here over the years. If you hit the next slide, it'll highlight a few of them. And in 2013, we said every business is a digital business. And we were the first to say that. At the time, I wrote that vision in 2013. And at the time, I spent most of that year defending it to people who were arguing with me and debating it. CEOs and leaders were saying that's nonsense. Digital's about the communications industry, or maybe it's about media, but it's not about my business. But it quickly became accepted. Within a matter of months to a year, it became accepted, and people started realize that that this is a big phenomenon. Every business truly is becoming a digital business. And as we progress through the vision, there are some other themes that came out that are important to where we're going this year as well. In 2016, we started talking about this idea of people first and the human element of the vision, which led to the book that Omar mentioned that I wrote called Human Plus Machine. And then we started talking about the post-digital era. What happens as you move through more of your digital journey? And then what happened? We in 2020 talked about this idea of the tech clash, which really happened in the last year with all the debate over the social platforms, the impact of fake news and all those types of things was what we were anticipating when we wrote the vision that year. So that's the kind of where we've come from in the vision. So you might ask, okay, I've been talking now for 15 minutes or whatever, 20 minutes or whatever it's been. So what is the vision for 2021? If you go to the next slide, this is what it is. This is the summary. The Accenture technology vision for 2021 is that the headline is Leaders Wanted. And I'll come back to why that's important. We're talking about masters of change at a moment of truth, and also at a moment of trust, which you'll hear me talk about as I go through the vision. Masters of change is important because this is about creating, using the technology to create platforms of change going forward, because this isn't about, just implementing a set of change that then runs your business going forward. It's creating platforms that can change, because we're in an era that's going to be decades of exponential accelerating technology change for a time to come. So this is about how do you capitalize on that change going forward. And the moment of truth is talking about this is the time when you need to adapt and react, because of what I talked about earlier with the digital achievement gap, these new realities, and this new race that's on post-COVID for companies. Now that they realize where they really stand to accelerate their progress going forward. The moment of trust is addressing the point that as you look at the impact of these technologies on employees, on consumers, on citizens, the winners will be those that can differentiate in how they build trust with the stakeholders and the people that they have, whether it be your workers, your customers, or community members, citizens that you have, et cetera. So the trust really becomes a key differentiator for companies in this future that we're going into. So as you think about this, then there's 5 trends that I'm going to go through relatively quickly. And we've got hundreds of pages of detail that we can send you on all these, and videos and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of information as you want to learn more. But I'm just going to give you a quick flyby on the 5 technology trends. The 5 trends that make up this vision around kind of leaders wanted and the importance of leadership that can master change at this important moment that we're in. So I'm not going to read them off here. You see the 5 things on the screen, and I'll just advance and talk about each of the 5 really quickly. So first trend that I'll talk about is this idea of stack strategically. And this is a bit of a technical trend. It's talking about the technology stack, which is how we build technology. This is talking about how do you go from your on-premise technology, your current data centers and such, and how do you get to the cloud? How do you move from the cloud, which is your big centralized computing infrastructure, to the edge computing, which might everything from, simple as my Apple Watch that I'm wearing to the smart scooter you may ride around a city in to the connected air purifier if you buy air purifiers from Unilever or other companies, and many other millions and billions of connected devices that are being put around the planet. How do you secure that whole environment? So Stack strategically is talking about the fact that the way that companies build technology matters, and this is about how you architect the technology in a way that it's adaptable to change and helps create this future that companies need to create going forward. And the good example of this, you see the vaccine picture on the screen. A good example of this is, how did we come up with these vaccines so quickly? Moderna, BioNTech, et cetera. One of the reasons was the approach that the companies used around technology. Moderna has something called their drug design studio. It lives in the cloud. It's powered by new forms of artificial intelligence, convolutional neural networks, a form of artificial machine learning and artificial intelligence. Powerful tools powered by immense amounts of data, so that scientists could work together with this technology, understand the patterns in the data, understand what was happening, and rapidly create new vaccines based on a whole new science of messenger RNA. Amazing kind of breakthrough results. And by the way, BioNTech, what I just described was Moderna. BioNTech was very similar in their approach that they had with Pfizer. So that's the point. The way you do the technology and how people then work with it really makes it strategic to companies, which is why, again, as I said earlier, we're seeing very senior executives and CEOs really deeply engage in a lot of these technology decisions, because how you do it matters to the success of the business. The second trend then is something we call the mirrored world, which is talking about the power of these massive intelligent digital twins. And if you don't recognize the term digital twin, this is talking about creating a digital, computerized representation of something in the real world. For example, there's a picture of a port, shipping port that you see on your screen there. This is a port that actually has, I'm not sure which port this is, but I'll talk about the port of Rotterdam, which is powered by digital twins. So the cranes and lifting equipment, the inbound ships that are coming in, the trucks that are arriving, the logistics of how they move all the containers around, that's all modeled. It's physical activities modeled in computerized digital twins, so that they can run with much greater efficiency in the way that they drive the operations. They can anticipate problems before they happen. They can run much more sustainability by anticipating and managing energy supply and things like that much more effectively. And this is about, digital twins is something we've talked about in our vision for many years, but what's changing now is digital twins are moving from just simulation in computers to affecting how companies operate complex operations. And you can think about this as like the future of business process and how businesses construct a lot of things, bringing reality into digital models to better operate the world. It's not just about industrial examples like this, although there's a lot of those. Another industrial example is one very large consumer goods manufacturing company who used digital twin technology in their plants to save millions of dollars in operating costs and dramatically cut their energy bills and produce the products much more sustainability. That's the kind of results we see with digital twins. The NFL, National Football League, is using digital twins to model team and athlete performance. Philips, leading health provider, is using digital twins in health diagnosis, surgical training, and surgical procedures. Many other domains where digital twins are becoming very important. The spending on digital twins as a result is skyrocketing from about $3 billion this year to $35 billion in spending by companies over the next few years. That's the second trend. The next trend is around our role. It's called the individual role in all this. It's called Technologist. And this is talking about this trend around the democratization of technology. As technology becomes more powerful, and this is what I wrote about in my book, Human Plus Machine, as technology becomes more powerful, it becomes more accessible to individuals. Some of you that work in technology will be familiar with low code and no code tools. So tools that allow you to develop technology solutions without any coding or software development. That's putting the power to build complex technology into more people's hands. Similar tools around data access, data analysis, et cetera. So as the way to think about this is, as every business becomes a technology business, technology becomes everyone's job and more people get engaged in technology, and the CIO's job changes from just building the technology to enabling more people to do technology. Nellie will be, and Accenture people will be familiar with something we have at Accenture called TQ, Technology Quotient. It's a whole learning program we're rolling out that's really focused on developing all of our people's technology quotient. It's kind of like your EQ, you have or IQ, you have your TQ. And even if you're not a technology developer at Accenture, you need to have a certain fluency in technology to understand and interpret where the world's going and do your job effectively. And that kind of broad-based education around technology is what becomes very important as well. So that's the trend around the individual impact of technology. The fourth trend is this idea of what's happening with work as we go forward, and we're calling this anywhere, everywhere, which is how work will be done going forward. Work, as I said earlier, will be done anywhere, and it'll push to everywhere. And this is about bringing your own environment, a different approach to how you enable work. Some organizations have done the basics of this already, with the way they've enabled people to work at massive scale from their homes and upgraded, their environments to allow things like zero trust security, so people can work securely from their laptops at home. But this is also about creating new experiences for people. We're doing, experiments that we're scaling at Accenture about using virtual reality to onboard our employees more quickly. Accenture has hired about 100,000 people since the onset of COVID. The blockchain is about how do you just have a shared version of the truth that everybody can access at any point in time. And it's a radical new way to simplify and implement a lot of different processes. So we're talking in the vision about a lot of examples of that. You'll see an example here of a coffee plantation in South America. And we're using blockchain technology to track the individual coffee beans and lots of coffee from where it's picked and how it's picked all the way through the retail stores, maybe a Starbucks or wherever you buy your coffee, so that when I get my cup of coffee, I'll know the provenance of the beans and everywhere they came from. Were they farmed organically? Was it done in a sustainable way so it didn't impact the rainforest? How is it distributed? And at the end of the day, I can actually connect back, and there's a concept called tip the farmer. If I want to reward the sustainable farmer, based on the cup of coffee I'm drinking, I could actually reward them backward, chaining through that blockchain to do that. Again, radically, that was a lot to absorb, but a radical different way of doing commerce that gets it to a more individual and democratized and decentralized kind of path going forward. So those are the 5 trends. Leaders wanted, masters of change at a moment of truth. Hopefully I've convinced you that something a bit new is happening here, and that it is an important time, as I said at the outset, and that it's also an important time for all of us to understand because of a lot of these impacts. And if you go to the next slide, which may be the last one. Yeah, I think this is the last one. This is just a proverb, that I came across as we were doing the vision that I really like. So I'll just leave you with this, and then we'll go to questions and answers. And there's massive change happening right now. I said it's an exceptional time. We're 70 years into the technology revolution, 70 years since the invention of the transistor. And we've been through this progression of applying information technology and data and artificial intelligence, cloud computing. All these things are really, a result of what started with the transistor and then the semiconductor, and what's been happening. We're just getting started with the impact. And it's this exponential change that's going to continue for the next few decades. And we all need to be ready for that. And, when the winds of change blow, some people try to prevent it, build walls, keep doing things the way they were. Others build windmills and look at how they propel themselves forward. I think this is an apt way to view our individual role with respect to all these changes, and the role that we play in companies to make sure we're creating the future in the world we want with the technology by deploying the technology in the right way to drive the kind of change that we want to affect in our companies, in our societies, and in the world we live in. So I will pause there, and I think, Omar, you were going to join me back for some Q&A?
Yes, Paul, I am back. Can you hear me?
I can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That has been, what a phenomenal presentation. There is just absolutely so much there. I took pages and pages of notes. But one thing that I really love is this notion that of, Technologist, that as technology becomes more accessible, technology becomes everybody's job. I think we're absolutely seeing that. And as we think about what we need to do as a community-wide effort for the Hispanic community and diverse communities, that's such a key message. So thank you so much for that. Question number 1 from our audience. Can you give some examples of 5X companies?
Yeah, well, I think one of the I talked about Starbucks. I think that's one of the ones I'd highlight. Other companies were literally shutting down their stores. They were they were finding ways to keep it going. Another example that we talk about is Santander, which is a bank that operates in the U.S. based in and also South America, based in Spain, who accelerated their digital innovation and their platforms, developed new intelligent agents. They have something called Sundrine, which allowed them to extend the services and offer new services very quickly during the during the pandemic, and serve new customers that new questions that customers were asking because of all the uncertainty of COVID, and serve them in more effective new ways. So that's that's another example. And the interesting thing, Omar, is that we saw these examples really across industries. A lot of times when you look at technology trends, it's certain industry, a bank or certain industries will do it faster. This is remarkably universal in terms of how the companies are benefiting from and applying the change. So really, one of the first times that I've seen where you have kind of a race across industries to really implement this type of change.
Great. So we have another question related to digital twins, and the question is related to what type of technologies go into developing digital twins, AI, analytics, what else?
Yeah, it's a great question. So digital twins, it's a term that it's a high level term that incorporates a lot of things. That you mentioned a couple of them. It's the foundation is around data, and a lot of data, and two forms of data. Typically, you're creating the data that represents the physical asset in the real world. We have in our labs where we do a lot of our digital twin work, we have scanning technology that can scan a manufacturing facility and create a digital representation of a drilling machine or whatever you might have in your factories, in the whole factory environment. And then it's the real-time data that comes in as well. So it's the IoT, Internet of Things, and sensors and connected data that's connected in real time, so that you can, in your simulation, it's simulating what will happen in real time. So this is used by one of the aircraft manufacturers to monitor their engine performance in real time as they're flying. They have a digital twin of every aircraft engine, so they know what's happening in real time with all the engines that are on planes of different airlines flying around the world. So that's a key thing. Artificial intelligence is really critical, because that's how you simulate and model and look forward. So in that jet aircraft example, one of the things they can do is, if they sense a maintenance issue that might need to be resolved, they can run forward simulations, looking at weather, looking at the flight schedule of that aircraft, and looking at other factors, and decide what's the safest and most cost-effective way to deal with that maintenance scenario going forward. So that's important. And then visualization technology is really important to digital twins. There's a large oil field services company that we've worked with on the technology to help them operate more efficiently, and it's visualizing a drilling environment for them so that they can operate safer, more sustainability, and more of a clean way as they're doing the energy, and with greater quality by visualizing the environment for the technician in that case. The interesting thing about digital twins is what we're seeing is it has the power to equip people to kind of advance the jobs they do. In a lot of cases, like the one I just mentioned, the person running the machinery would have, the information would have been fed up to an office somewhere where other people might have interpreted what was happening and decided what to do. Digital twins put the people on the front lines who are doing the work and give them the power to operate more effectively and make a lot of the business decisions in a more decentralized way, which gives them more skills and capability, and makes the jobs more interesting and more worthwhile as well.
Great. So I think we have time for a couple more questions. What are the top 3 barriers to digital adoption now? And are they any different than they were pre-pandemic? Are we seeing acceleration or brand new innovation?
That's a great question. The top barriers probably have changed a little bit. I think the top barriers now are getting, there's a technology issue of getting the technology foundations in place. There's a governance issue in companies around how do they affect the right change and get everyone aligned to the change, which is a big focus that companies are working on. Then there's kind of an operating model and strategic issue of how does it change your business? For digital, for some companies, means think as a simple example about the aircraft example I used. You're changing the whole way you manage the fleet and the jobs and how you operate. And in that case, they're turning the engine maintenance into a different kind of service going forward, which affects the whole operating model and how they run their business. So those are the types of things that I think are hard to figure out. But what we're seeing post-COVID is there's more strategic alignment starting from the top down on the need to transform. We talked about this period of compressed transformation where companies are doing it faster. They're pulling in what might have been a 5-year transformation into 3 years or 2 years or less, and accelerating. So that's the other big change, is this acceleration going forward, and the recognition that moving to things like cloud quickly and moving to some of the technologies is necessary to accelerate the change. The one other thing that comes into play is the talent thing, which is companies realizing as they try to move faster, they don't have the talent to do it. So focusing on the talent early as you look at doing this in your organization is super important.
Great. I know you mentioned, you gave the example of the airplane as it relates to digital twins. And I know that you're on what might be your first business trip in a long time. We talked about that earlier. So the question is specifically related to the travel industry. How do you see the travel industry coming back based on this idea of omni, right? Anywhere and everywhere?
Well, I think I'm not an expert in this, so don't take this as a travel industry expert. But my sense is that the personal driven travel will accelerate dramatically because people are there's so much pent up desire to get somewhere. And certainly in the U.S., the world's very different. If you're in India, it's in a devastating, awful state. In Brazil, in certain places, Europe's kind of a little bit behind the U.S. The U.S., we're feeling like we're coming out of this thing, in a lot of the places. But I think the pent up personal demand is going to drive that. I think business is going to be circumspect about this because the reality is, a lot of people didn't want to travel as much to start with, and we've proven there's not as much need to do it. So I think it'll be a measured pickup in the travel as everyone reevaluates. Let's do it when it's necessary. I mean, the planetary impact of all the emissions from the travel, among other things, are very good reasons to revisit why we were doing all that travel in the first place, and creating virtual experiences, new forms of work, omni connection, as I said, and things like that, I think are going to be really important. And it really is important that we don't go back to the previous way of doing it, because that wasn't the right way to do it. We've seen a better path and a better future.
Great. Well, Paul, this has been an absolutely amazing opportunity to engage with you, to hear from you, and to be able to ask some questions. As we wind down, I wonder if there's any parting words, advice, points of inspiration that you have for our community.
Yeah, I'd say one of the messages that I've been delivering to every audience that I think that's especially important to the high-tech audience is that we're creating the future, and technology is more human than it's ever been. I would argue that we've been subservient to technology, and the way we applied technology in the past has been far from optimal. The way we're forced to use small screens and phones and strain our eyes to type on things and force people to stare at screens for long periods of the day. That's not the bright future that I want to enable. We have the potential to create a much more human future going forward, where the humans are in control. That's what artificial intelligence is about. That's what digital twins are about. That's what this Technologist is about. And if you look at the fact that we're creating this human impact of technology going forward, we better be doing it with a diverse set of talent and a diverse set of stakeholders, or we're going to end up with a very warped world. So in my view, inclusion and diversity matters more in technology than it ever has. And it's an essential priority, because we're designing technology that's going to change the human experience, and we better be doing it in a way that's good for everyone. And the only way we'll get there is if we have an inclusive and diverse team doing it. And we don't have that in place across the technology industry, which is why this is such a priority, for our organization, with all the great work Nellie's been doing and the leadership commitment we have in it. But we've got a lot of work to do across the industry to make sure that's true. And it's another reason why the moment is now to really get everyone engaged in driving this type of future.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Paul. Really, really enjoyed having you on. Thanks again for all your support. Have a great day. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nelly Borrero, Managing Director at Accenture. It is my absolute pleasure on behalf of the over 500,000 employees at Accenture to sponsor and welcome you to High Tech Summer 2021 Leadership Forum. So far, we've had some great sessions, and I just want to take a few minutes to say a couple of things. I started with it is my pleasure. I'll add also is my privilege to be able to partner with High Tech. It is an incredible organization. And I know that many of you are joining us today, and many of us know each other. We build that community through High Tech, and I want to thank High Tech for that. As we think about the rest of today, I want us to continue to be open to embracing, new ideas and thoughts and recommendations from people that are taking the time to join us today. I have the privilege also to sit on the board of High Tech, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I am every time we have a board meeting and I'm engaging with board members across multiple industries, amazing leaders who will also be featured here today as part of this conference. So again, thank you, High Tech, for all that you do. Omar, to you and the team, I mean, it is an incredible machine that does amazing things for our community, and to all the allies that are joining us today, thank you as well. So over to you, Omar. Hope everybody enjoys this conference today.
Thank you, Nelly, and hello again. I hope you enjoyed Paul Daugherty's keynote. If you haven't read Paul's book yet, Human Plus Machine, Reimagining Work in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, a management guide to artificial intelligence, it is incredibly compelling, a great read, and I highly recommend you picking it up. We have an exciting program lined up for you for the rest of today. As always, we invite you to engage with us here on our platform, and we also invite you to share the conversation on social media. Be sure to tag us and use our hashtags. We are High Tech and hashtag Let There Be Change. I'm excited to report that as of a few minutes ago, we have 1,038 people registered to participate in this virtual forum, making this our largest gathering ever. Today, we welcome attendees from 20 different countries and 38 states across the US. And in the spirit of all things are bigger in Texas, for the first time, the Lone Star State has the highest number of participants with 174, followed by California and Florida. I'm proud to report that 45% of our attendees are women and 57% of our attendees have more than 15 years of technology experience. I know many of you submitted your high-tech check-in videos, which we'll be showing throughout the day, but I'm happy to report that our top 3 represented countries are the United States, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. And as you know, there's no surprise there. Also, 49% of participants are brand new to high-tech. So let me be the first to welcome you to this engaging and impactful community of Hispanic technology professionals and executives. I know that participating in events like these, virtually or in person, can feel a bit overwhelming, especially if you're new. But I invite all of the first-time attendees to chime in on the chat. Let us know you're here. Let us know who you are. We look forward to connecting with you today and in the days to come. Now, I want to be very clear for newcomers and for high-tech veterans alike. We exist for you. This community exists to help you connect with other leaders, and we're here to help you grow professionally. Our vision is to connect, inspire, and grow influential Hispanic technology executives while developing the next generation of leaders. We want to help build a pipeline of Hispanic technology leaders up the corporate ladder, into the C-suite, and into the boardroom. Our community continues to grow, and I believe we've reached a tipping point in our growth as companies continue to see the value of our work to develop the next generation of leaders. This year, we've added 8 new corporate partners. And since we last gathered in March, we're pleased to welcome 3 new partners. And please join me in welcoming ThoughtWorks, Extreme Networks, and Apex. We're also excited to partner with Gartner for their not-to-be-missed IT Symposium in October. We'll be raffling tickets to the Gartner Symposium to individuals who make a contribution to the High Tech Foundation. So stay tuned for more information there. All of our corporate partnership work is led by our Director of Corporate Development and Engagement, Susana Ramirez. And if you're interested in becoming a high-tech corporate partner, please be sure to connect with her. Our core programs also continue to grow and mature. And not only is this year's Emerging Executive Program our largest, but it's the most structured and robust. And please join me in recognizing the leadership of Fernando Rosario, EEP Executive Program Director, and Christine Aguilera, our Program Director for EEP and E+. I also want to thank and recognize our mentors and also our fellows for all of the hard work that they're putting into this program. EEP, for those of you that are new, is the premier national program for rising Hispanic technology executives. Since its inception in 2014, we continue to retool, iterate, and improve the experience on behalf of our EEP fellows and our corporate partners. Since launching the program, 254 Hispanic technology leaders have graduated, and we're excited to say that there's 78 EEP fellows participating in this year's cohort. 60% of this year's cohort are rising leaders at Fortune 100 companies. 97% are based in the United States, and 45% are women. EEP alumni are among the top professionals in their fields, and many describe the EEP program as a life-changing experience that has helped them get noticed and promoted within their own company. In addition to the rigorous curriculum, EEP fellows get a unique opportunity to expand their network and build meaningful relationships with other emerging Hispanic technology leaders. As we continue to grow, I'm pleased to announce also the next step in high-tech's evolution of how we explore identity and intersectionality within our Latino community. This work will focus on honoring and celebrating diversity within our Hispanic community and creating spaces where leaders can share their stories in an effort to connect, inspire, and grow. This work is made possible by the generous support of our partner, Accenture. I'm excited to invite you to join us in celebrating Pride Month as we honor and celebrate the diversity of experiences and journeys that form our high-tech LGBTQ+ community. Throughout the year, we will explore conversations about the Hispanic identity, dispelling myths, challenging stereotypes that exist within our own community, and embracing the differences that make us such a rich and diverse community. We'll explore conversations about the Black Latino identity, the Asian Latino identity, the immigrant experience, and more. After all, it's these unique experiences and identities that make us so uniquely prepared to lead at this precise moment in history. If you're interested in sharing your story and experience, please connect with our events, marketing, and communications manager, Maria Castagnola, to set up a time to record a short video to share with our broader community. I also want to congratulate this year's High-Tech 50 recipients. Just last week, we announced this year's High-Tech 50 award recipients. A High-Tech 50, for those of you that don't know, is a celebration of the 50 most impactful Hispanic technology executives in Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. These 50 leaders represent the depth of knowledge and executive leadership that we aim to celebrate at High-Tech. Together, these 50 technology leaders manage budgets of more than $56 billion at major global companies. 44% of this year's High-Tech 50 are women, including leaders also recognized as part of Forbes's top 20 women in technology and Forbes's 10 most powerful businesswomen in Brazil and Colombia. This year's recipients stand out for their executive leadership and business impact, but also for their commitment to helping develop the next generation of technology leaders consistent with our mission. I invite you to join us for our High-Tech 50 Award celebration on Friday, July 23rd. I'm also pleased to announce that nominations for High-Tech 100 are now open. So if you'd like to nominate a leader for consideration, you can submit a nomination form on our website through July 16th. And now this is our fourth all virtual event. And one of the things people have liked most about our events has been our music. We have great Spotify playlists for you today, but I'm also super excited to welcome my personal friend, Andrea Salcedo, as our musical entertainment. Andrea is one of the premier flamenco guitarists, one of the top women flamenco guitarists, and possibly the most acclaimed non-Spanish flamenco guitarist. She joins us today directly from Madrid, but she was born in Mexico and grew up here in Chicago, where I had the opportunity to meet her. I'm excited for all of you to get to know this talented Latina. But now I want to invite you to be present and active in our event. Don't be afraid to chime in. The chat feature will be an active place, and we invite you to join in the conversation. I invite you to introduce yourself, share with us who you are, what you're doing, and share your LinkedIn profile with us so we can be sure to connect. This is a unique opportunity for you to expand your professional network with others like you. Additionally, we invite you to participate in our designated networking sessions taking place at the end of today. We're using a great platform embedded within this event platform, which will enable you to join smaller networking rooms simply by dragging your avatar into an existing networking room. I invite you once again to connect with us beyond today's forum, including joining us for our High-Tech Live webinar series, And please be sure, if you're interested in learning more about High Tech Live, to connect with our Executive Director, Viviana Costa, to learn how you can contribute and be active throughout the year with us. Looking to take high tech into your own company, Viviana Costa also leads our efforts to build customized high tech programming for your company and for your team. So please be sure to reach out. And finally, if you walk away with one thing for today, I hope it's knowing that this is a unique community of Hispanic tech leaders and we exist for you. We are committed to helping you develop. We believe that we can have an impact when we all come together, when we all support each other, and when we're all pushing in the same direction to lift our community and to create a better world. So with that, I'm so excited to be here. It feels amazing to be back in an office. So thankful to Accenture for sponsoring this event, but also for allowing me to come into their Innovation Hub here in Chicago. I look forward to the day when we're all able to gather again together in person. But until then, please stay connected with us. Please continue to engage with us. We need you now more than ever. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of today's programming.